So thank you so much, Anna, and the whole Woodstock Neighborhood Association. And I really feel like our issues are so connected, all the other environmental issues that came up tonight. I'm so glad to be talking to you all about the serious risks associated with the critical energy infrastructure hub. It's also called the CEI Hub. It's a 6-mile stretch of oil and chemical storage tanks in Northwest Portland between Forest Park and the Willamette River. My name is Laurie King, and I live with my husband in the St. John's area. And right out my window, when it's daytime, I can see the oil tanks right across the river. We've done this presentation at about 18 or 19 neighborhood associations so far, and we want to reach as many as possible because neighborhood associations should play a critical role in how our city develops. So the information I'm sharing about the CEI Hub tonight comes from scientific studies, medical experts, the government, and news reports, including a 2022 study jointly commissioned by the City of Portland and Multnomah County on the risks of a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. North Portland neighborhoods like mine, near the hub, and neighborhoods along the rail lines carrying oil to the hub are the most affected by risks from the CEI Hub, but all neighborhoods are at risk from these operations. City code requires city agencies to notify and include neighborhood associations in planning that affects neighborhood livability. There are 10 major fuel terminals in the CEI Hub. 90% of Oregon's liquid fuel and 100% of airport fuel is stored and or transported through the CEI Hub. Oil stored at the hub would fill more than 450 swimming pools, which I think is not the most beautiful image in the world. People along the train tracks and near the CEI Hub are continually exposed to a toxic mix of chemicals. Hundreds of toxics are present at the CEI Hub, and they escape when oil is transferred from train to tank to ship. Depending on the winds, the toxins may spread through the metro area. Very importantly, there are no monitors, no air quality monitors in the CEI Hub, and the industries essentially monitor themselves. Operations at the CEI Hub can foster the continued high use of burnable fuels, leading to further climate chaos, which is in itself a huge health effect of the CEI Hub. And that's especially relevant as the climate crisis is getting more serious. There's also the risk of derailment of trains going to and from the tank farms. Here you see Mosier, Oregon, where in 2016, there was a derailment and oil tank cars exploded. You've probably heard about the more recent derailment with toxic chemical release that happened in East Palestine, Ohio. And in 2013, there was an oil train derailment in Lac Mégantic, Quebec, where the explosion killed 47 people. And these weren't freak accidents. The federal government has recorded just in 2022 alone over 1,000 train derailments. So oil, that not all carrying toxic stuff, but still train derailments. Oil trains coming down the gorge cross near many Portland neighborhoods and all are sites of potential explosions. Besides health risks from pollution and risks of explosion from train derailments, there's the existential risk associated with a predicted subduction zone earthquake. Seismologists predict a 40% chance of the big one in the next 50 years. And what makes the risk existential is the fact that most of the CEI Hub rests on a liquefaction zone and sits on land that once was lakes and wetlands, and then was filled in with soil dredged from the river and removed from the West Hills. It's really unstable land that would liquefy in an earthquake, causing hundreds of tanks to rupture and spill their contents. Interestingly, the CEI is unique among bulk fuel terminals in the United States because it's built on a liquefaction zone. And this was not known when most of the tanks were built, but we know it now. And what you see in front of you is a map of liquefaction susceptibility, and the orange arrow is pointing to the area of the CEI Hub. and it's color-coded a deep magenta, which indicates a high to a very high susceptibility to liquefaction. And here you see some of the reports concerning earthquake risks at the CEI Hub, their city and county reports. And here are some of the points that are made. Many of the tanks are old. Less than 2% were built since 1993. A number were built before 1970, and there's a number that were built in the 1930s. Only 1% of the tanks have been verifiably retrofitted according to DEQ guidelines, and the pie chart that you see up there indicates that 1%, and that comes from the DEQ. The City-County Seismic Risk Analysis Report estimates that more than 60% of the tanks could release liquid fuel in the event of the predicted Cascade earthquake. If that happens, we should expect 100 to 200 million gallons of fuel released from the tanks into the river and onto land. And this is potentially larger than the Deepwater Horizon spill, which was the largest and most destructive in U.S. history. Ironically, the CEI Hub sits within a 10-mile Superfund site in Portland, in the Portland Harbor. Due to contamination from more than a century of industrial pollution, the federal government is cleaning up the river. And this complex process is taking years and millions of dollars and would be for naught if we don't meaningfully address the risks. A recent Senate bill, which passed, and was sponsored by Senator Michael Dembrow, requires energy terminal owners to submit comprehensive seismic vulnerability assessments and risk mitigation plans to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality no later than next summer, June 1st, 2024. Representative Graber, who's also a firefighter, said a long overdue set of actions is needed to prepare the state for an inevitable catastrophe we know is coming our way. And while this is a good first step, that the law that was passed, full implementation of the bill could take up to 10 years. Within the CEI Hub, the Zenith Energy Corporation is a particularly problematic actor. And why is this? They are a fuel storage and transfer facility. 100% of the oil that Zenith brings into the tank farms is loaded on ships that travel down the Willamette and Columbia rivers to other states and to other countries, like in Asia. None of their products are used in Oregon, so we're essentially like a sacrifice zone or a corridor for them. In 2022, Zenith moved 374 million gallons of crude oil through Portland, more than 550 Olympic-sized swimming pools. In 2021, the city of Portland denied the land use compatibility statement that Zenith needed to continue, citing that their operations did not align with Portland's comprehensive plan. We achieved this victory because hundreds demonstrated, thousands signed petitions, and many gave testimony and emailed City Hall. And here, this is testimony given by a Grant High School student in 2021. Also, Multnomah County commissioners and 20 state legislators backed our efforts. Zenith appealed to the State Land Use Board of Appeals and lost. They lost in the State Court of Appeals, and the case was at the Oregon Supreme Court. But we were not strong enough to prevent major backsliding. In the fall of 2022, behind closed doors, without public input, and within days of an expected negative ruling for Zenith in the Oregon Supreme Court, the city of Portland granted Zenith a new land use compatibility statement because they promised to switch to renewable diesel in 5 years. Unfortunately, Zenith has a record of being untrustworthy. In 2018, they promised regulators that their fourfold expansion would not lead to an increase of crude oil imports. But they've been moving more crude oil through Portland each year since 2019. And this is detailed in an Oregonian article from February 22nd, 2023. Also, renewable diesel can spill and its contents can explode and catch on fire. So that all that has to be studied. Now that Zenith has their land use compatibility statement, they'll be asking the DEQ for an air quality permit, and the DEQ will be making their decision soon. We need to make sure that more people know about the CEI Hub. Our health and safety depend on it. 7,000 people signed a petition against Zenith's operations in 2021, and hundreds go to actions. But will be better listened to by city and state representatives when we have thousands who go to actions and tens of thousands who sign petitions. And the youth are carrying this burden. There's many youth who are involved. And fortunately, there's no end to creative actions that bring public awareness to the CEI Hub. This is a protest commemorating the first anniversary of the Lac Mégantic oil train disaster. In 2019, 11 people were arrested building a victory garden on the tracks in front of Zenith. 5 people went to trial using the necessity or the lesser of two evils defense. After a hung jury, 5 out of 6 jurors voted not guilty, and the case was dismissed and the defendants acquitted. And here you see what a group of concerned citizens in the Linton neighborhood did. They collected money to put up these billboards on in Burma shave style on St. Helens Road. There are many ways for everyone to help in whatever way fits, and it can really be fun. And one of the people in the organization working on this made a whole bunch of dioramas with Barbie dolls. So what can we do? There are many ways we can educate ourselves, from reading the county seismic risk analysis to seeing movies like Once a Braided River, which will be playing in St. John's again on December 5th, and hopefully will be playing in the Southeast as well. And there's also community forums that people can go to. They're called Rumble on the River. So please put your name and email in the chat tonight if you'd like to be on a list to get information about events like the next Rumble on the River Community Forum, which is going to be November 16th. Place is still being decided on. And then also the movie showings of Once a Braided River, and that's about the industrialization of the Willamette River, or actions at City Hall or other places. And this is how we keep building. And there are also opportunities to testify. So all those things, if you're on the list, you'll get information about events and things coming up. So if you put your name in the chat, that would be great, and email. And really importantly, neighborhood associations can themselves take important actions. So you can vote to co-sponsor the Rumble on the River community forums. And a lot of neighborhood associations have done that. And you can also sign on to the letter from neighborhood associations and other organizations to public officials saying that we need them to be much more proactive in protecting our health and safety from risks associated with the CEI Hub. And it's our voices from, up north where I am in St. John's to Irvington to Woodstock that need to be heard. So I'll describe the letter briefly, and you can see it on the screen. And I think you might have all gotten a copy of it. But it's good to I want to just very, very quickly, really briefly say what's in the letter. So the letter is going to be sent to Governor Tina Kotek, Oregon DEQ Director Leah Felden, members of the Oregon Legislature, the Oregon Federal Delegation, the Portland City Council, the Board of County Commissioners, and the Metro Council, because they all have a role in helping deal with the problems. And the letter states that Senate Bill 1567 about requiring plans for earthquake proofing is a good, but still not enough. It's a good step, but still not enough. We need other important measures. And the measures that we would like to see are these. There's 6 of them. Local and state officials must educate and alert people of the greater Portland area to the dangers of the CEI Hub. A lot of people don't know about it. Most people don't know about it. 2, local and state government agencies must take immediate action to monitor and remediate pollution associated with the CEI Hub. As I said before, there's no monitoring. And 3, local and state governments must immediately coordinate to develop a new plan for Oregon's fuel storage. There has to be some new plan where the storage is not on an earthquake liquefaction zone. As I said before, most of the tanks were built before people knew about the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. 4, local and state governments must require companies who operate within the CEI Hub to assume full financial responsibility for addressing disasters. It shouldn't be up to the taxpayer to have to pay for any remediation and dealing with any disasters. 5, the Oregon legislature must work to craft legislation that requires companies to regularly update local officials and emergency responders as to the types of fuels and chemicals and toxins that are stored and transferred to and from the hub. Right now, there isn't that requirement. There is in the state of Washington, but not in Oregon. And finally, city and state agencies must monitor Zenith's Energy's transport and storage of fossil fuels and substantiate the environmental, public health, safety, and economic advantages of their promised transition to biofuels. We have to know that that transition is really happening because it hasn't happened yet. So we feel like these are really reasonable demands, and we hope that the Woodstock Neighborhood Association signs on to the letter from that other neighborhood associations and groups are signing on to. And you can see that within like maybe 3 weeks now, hard to tell, maybe 3.5 weeks, a number of neighborhood associations and a coalition, as well as other organizations, have signed the letter. So you can see them, and Southeast Uplift has signed, and also in Southeast Smile. And then some neighborhoods, all through the city, and others are considering it now. So please let us know if you how you feel about this, and if you'd like to sign on, and if you do, please send your logo. And that's it. Any questions?
So much. I probably heard one of the very early presentations you gave at Southeast Uplift, and you became really a professional.
Yeah,
in these few weeks.
Yeah, it's something that is so dear to hearts, and when people find out about it, it's like, wow, this is important.
Well, I also wonder, do you know why there is a lot more oil being stored in Portland than before?
That's a really good question. I mean, there's more oil, like in the particular case of Zenith, they expanded fourfold in about 2018. So that means that 4 times the number of trains are coming through the city. So they have definitely.
I'm asking because, I mean, we all are fully aware that we are all participating in fossil fuel burning in one way or another. So I'm just wondering, so someone made that decision to have that storage here, but a lot of people in other regions say, like, we don't want this thing here because it is so dangerous.
Yeah.
And I wonder if other places were shut down and Portland now gets the extra storage space that needs to be accommodated.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, this has been the choice place for decades for storage, and it's serious because it is a liquefaction zone that people did not know about, but now they have to take. We feel our government on all levels has to take that more seriously, and then in addition, because of climate change, the state has certain climate goals, and the city of Portland has climate goals, and they really require us to start diminishing our use of fossil fuels. It's hard to figure out exactly how to do that, all at once, but that's what people have to start doing. And that's why we're saying we need to be compatible with the goals that we have, and start diminishing the use of fossil fuels and use more solar. There needs to be more support for solar and wind in Oregon, especially, and solar in Portland. There should be lots of solar in Portland.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering, because I also heard it's really complex thing. Because I also heard that the state of Oregon, and especially in the Portland area, the transportation companies were buying off trucks and other means of large transportation machines that were outlawed in other states of the United States. And we don't have the environmental laws to actually prevent that. So where I also think like, yeah, if I'm allowed to burn fossil fuels like crazy in the state, why not store fossil fuels here too? So, I mean, I think it's a much more complex thing. So I really like your outreach, to actually put that to, you know, all these questions to our public officials, and, later in our little board business, portion, we will see if we can vote and sign on to the letter.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so are there any other questions? I wanna.
Thanks for this. Question, are all the holding facilities, the tanks, are they on Port of Portland lands, or are they all private lands?
Oh, I'm not sure I heard you right. Are the tanks on private land?
Yeah, or Port of Portland.
I believe it's all private.
Okay, and then is there any, as far as like seismic upgrades to these tanks, is the EPA or the DEQ doing anything to require upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, the DEQ, they took that first step of saying that by next June of 2024, that the all the 10 corporations who are there have to have remediation plans in order. But those are the plans, then they have to be implemented. At this point, the DEQ says only 1% of the tanks are verifiably retrofitted for earthquake. I mean, even assuming that they can be retrofitted for earthquake, no one really knows, but even assuming that there is something, just DEQ standards is only 1% has been verifiably retrofitted. So we need the DEQ, we need the governor, we need people to say this has got to move faster.
So my understanding is that many of them are single wall, not double wall. And that's the same with the tanks, the train tankers that are coming through. And that the pool that is supposed to surround that won't even hold the capacity of the tank that it surrounds. So it automatically would overflow, and then mix, that's the scary part, mix with the contents of other tanks.
Right. Because they're
And then go directly into the river. Really.
Right.
I have a question. The backtracking that, was it city council that they issued the LECS? Is it my understanding that their reasoning for doing that was the renewable fuels? They sort of think of it as climate action because of the renewable fuels aspect.
Right.
Is there a plan to sort of get them out of this thinking? Is there a plan to, because if we sign letters, are they still just gonna say, that's great, no, but we're doing climate action, right? And is there a plan if they were required to store it somewhere else, like where that might be, and to sort of make legislatively require them to actually follow through with the renewable fuels and start downsizing their amount of fossil fuels?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many pieces to this, because this letter is pretty moderate. It's at this point only asking about the biofuels first, that they monitor Zenith, because Zenith said the city did back down on what they originally said in 2021 on the basis of the biofuels. But at this point, Zenith hasn't even started. Zenith promised a few years ago that they were going to be moving to biofuels when they did that fourfold expansion, but they've been increasing fossil fuels every year. So we're just saying, at least, I mean, I feel like you're asking for that, saying there's even more, and there is, but we're just saying at least the city should be monitoring what is in those tanks, and are they, is every year in the next 5 years, will they be moving toward more biofuels, or will they still be increasing fossil fuels? So that's one thing, we're saying monitor it. And then the second thing is the whole issue of biofuels is extremely controversial. And one of the other points is we want the city to prove to us, since they did that turnaround on the basis of biofuels, tell us that how much less explosive biofuels are, because a lot of experts are saying biofuels explode too. And also
It's my understanding they explode every bit as much. They're essentially, once they're refined, they're chemically the same as.
so why is
any
that a big difference? And
of
also,
stuff.
and then when biofuels, and then in terms of the city and state climate action goals, if the biofuels are burned, some experts, and this is, we're going to be doing one of the community forums on biofuels coming up, because there are experts who are saying that 80, it's still when you burn biofuels, it's at least 80% carbon dioxide is produced as if it were, 80% of what a fossil fuel would produce. So it's still unclear. I mean, not unclear. It would still be violating the city's climate action plan to keep increasing biofuels.
Yeah, there's a bit of nuance there. I have a master's in environmental policy and management, so I know a bit. I'm not the ultimate expert on this kind of thing, but I know a bit about it. There is an argument to be made for how renewable fuels could help industries like the airlines that can't electrify so easily. And so I can see where they would think that there could be an environmental, like a climate need for it. It just has to be managed better than what they're doing right now.
Right.
And as you mentioned, it's still very explosive and it presents a hazard that is unacceptable. And so that's why I ask is like, what is the plan to respond to them if they come back and say, well, it's climate action, we're doing climate action.
Oh, we're doing climate action because we're using biofuels?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're saying we want them, we want them to prove to us, show us your reasoning. At this point with the letters saying, show us your proof, give us your scientific data that shows that this would be a significant change in the safety issues of explosions, of leaks, and also how much better it is for the climate than fossil fuels. Like, show us, let's see your data.
Well, also, if I understand it correctly, it's also about the accountability of that actual storage facility. So, I mean, there is, someone needs to take that risk into their hands to store the stuff as long as we're, living our lifestyle like this.
Right.
And, obviously the state didn't want to deal with that risk, so it's being put into private hands. But then that accountability needs to be followed through. You can't just say like, okay, here you go.
Do what you do. Yeah, because our government, our local and state governments should be protecting us. They should be accountable in that way. They should make sure that to know and to be able to, explain to people what's happening.
Okay, so we have to move on. If there are any more questions, please ask now. A comment. I can assure you, Laurie, we are working on showing the river at the Laurelhurst Theater, so it's all in the workings. We're also gonna apply to show it at the Hollywood Theater to get it into their programs in combination with the discussion forum. And please keep us in the loop as our neighborhood association for any upcoming events and what the outcomes are. Elizabeth?
Laurie, can you put the name of the movie in chat, please?
Sure. Oh, and I mean, even though it's more fun to see the movie all together in a theater, you can see it on YouTube. So you can look it up yourselves too on YouTube. It's called Once.
Okay, Once a Braided River.
One more question. You mentioned putting our name and email in the chat, but I'm in person, so should I just have you?
Oh, that's right.
Well, we have a sign sheet, or do we get the names of people who were present?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a sign-in sheet.
Anna, would you be able to give me names of people who are interested in being on the list to know about events?
Yes, why don't we do that? We have a little list. You took all the names down?
Well, I took the names down as best I can spell them, and I don't know the person.
Yeah, so.
And
On the point, there is me, there is okay, we
Thank
make
you.
sure that happens.
A quick question. May I ask the name of the person who was saying you have a degree Are you at the meeting?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, and what is your name?
Melissa.
Oh, Melissa. Oh, you're Melissa. Okay. Thank you.
I was gonna ask Melissa if you wanted to be involved in any of the work that we're doing, and especially
Yeah.
community forum.
I would love to. It's actually, just as a side note, I have, I'm at PSU right now, doing some more graduate work, and, I have an assignment due tonight where I'm talking about CEI. So I have to.
Oh my God. Yeah, because yeah, it would be great.
Liquefaction and yeah, how it's, everything you said definitely checks out. It is.
Oh,
it is
great.
bad news.
Oh, it'll be great. Fabulous. This is
Okay,
great.
Laurie, thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Very nice to meet you.